This is a Tracking the Tropics update with the certified most accurate weather team at First Coast News.
Hi there, I'm meteorologist Robert Spetta.
And I'm meteorologist Lee Southwick. Thank you so much for joining us for this Wednesday's Talkin' Tropics episode. And Robert, we have a hurricane that now may become a major hurricane.
Yeah, Category 3 per the latest guidance from the National Hurricane Center, making landfall in Cuba, just basically due south of Havana here, so in western Cuba. And Lee, can you just talk about, what's these lines we're seeing? That's the hurricane hunters flying around that storm right now, right?
Yep, they have been constantly surveying this system, this hurricane, checking it out. And with the latest data they have gathered and how quickly this hurricane is strengthening, they now forecast for it to become a Category 3 hurricane. So you can see the data populating on the screen. That's what they are clocking. So a pressure of 962 they have found so far and a wind speed of 101. But the official forecast with that sustained wind near the eye, that's winds of 110 miles an hour. Robert, that's only 1 mile per hour shy of a major hurricane.
Yeah, and it will weaken before it impacts the United States. So I do want to clarify that before
absolutely.
we get right off the kind of the bat here. But I do want to also touch in on, and we're going to ask this question right now. If you're watching us live, answer those questions down below, or even if you're watching the recording. The trivia for this, and we'll answer it at the end of this, is when was the last time a tropical storm or hurricane impacted somewhere in the United States on Election Day? And we asked this because, of course, we just had this storm system still south of Cuba, but we did have those tropical storm warnings that were in place for Key West. Now, thankfully, no impacts on any poles out here or anything like that. But this particular storm did have some impacts after it made landfall. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Let's get back to our current storm system, though. And Lee, we have the radar up here for the First Coast. That's where we're recording this if you're watching it from anywhere else around the country. And we have these onshore kind of rain bands that are kicking on through, and these are not directly associated with our tropical system, but indirectly with a passing front, right, Lee?
Absolutely. So the passing front, and then with that, hurricane to our south, and we have these winds. We just have a big collision of moisture over our area, and we're going to continue to see that rain over our area.
Ooh.
But this here, Robert, this is what I wanted to pull up radar for. You can see the eye now on radar heading right for Cuba.
And pardon me. And when we talk about those winds that are up potentially near Cat 3 intensity, it's not that whole range shield off towards the north. It's that inner, you see where the eye is, there's that one little kind of line on the right side of that eye. That's where you have those core of these potentially destructive winds that are going to be coming on shore here into Cuba later on today. But Lee, can you touch in on, maybe somebody's new to kind of meteorology and they're curious what's going on here. Why is they look like this storm is missing its bottom half? What's going on here?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Hey, okay, let me see if I can actually, did I pull up the satellite? Oh, nope, let me go back. Okay, so what you are looking at here is our radar loop, and I wish that we had, Robert, do you remember what the island is in Cuba? I know you were just looking up the geography.
Yeah,
going over that geography
These
real
are
quick
just kind of some of those coastal Ks right in there. So don't know the specific names of these islands here just south of Cuba, but that's where this
I
is.
wish I could point out Havana on this map, too.
It's so basically, yeah. I'm
I wish I could,
yeah,
the green
just
screen behind
specifically
us.
point it, but it's basically due north of
Right.
Where this is coming on shore.
And this is a major Category 3 hurricane. So when you look at the huge swath of rain over Cuba, heavy rain. Remember, this is a very mountainous area too. We're going to have a lot of problems with mudslides as this hurricane continues to move north as well. And this is going to continue to move up to the north. And Robert, would you mind going through this cone and this forecast track for me real quick?
Yeah, of course. So right now, this is about to come on shore. To answer that question just real quick, because I did ask about it, the radar can't see the bottom half of that storm. Oh. So yeah, we're going to continue to track this though as it comes on shore. And let's talk about that cone though, because the closer it gets, of course, this is going to start to interact with the west coast of Cuba. The western side of Cuba, not quite as mountainous as the eastern side out to an area like Guantanamo Bay is, but it is still going to have enough friction to cause this to weaken. So we can scoot this ahead where it is expected now, according to the 10 o'clock advisory, to make landfall as a Category 3 hurricane here just towards the west of Havana. So it's expected to really move right over the western side of the island here as a stronger storm. And then it's going to reemerge out here in the eastern Gulf of Mexico, still as a Cat 1, maybe a Cat 2, and then eventually track off towards the west. Now, you might be curious, okay, what exactly is happening here once it gets to the western Gulf of Mexico? Why does it stall out? And the reason is because we have these fronts that are going to be dipping in from the north. We got an increasing amount of vertical wind shear that is going to kind of start to disrupt this storm system. So it very well could weaken out and still expect landfall eventually somewhere out here in the Gulf as a tropical system, but it probably could be closer to a tropical storm or maybe even a tropical depression when that eventually does take place. So right now, I think one of the main impacts is going to continue to be destructive winds potentially here across western Cuba, and also that interaction with our front towards north, still kind of cascading rainfall, scattered showers, not flooding rains, but scattered showers across a good portion of the Florida Peninsula here. And this is a looking at our current hurricane warnings that are in place for the western half of Cuba, including the largest city on the island of Havana. But also keep in mind, tropical storm warnings are in place for the Florida Keys. And this is what we were just talking about. Yesterday was election day. We had those tropical storm watches that were up there in the Florida Keys. Thankfully, no direct impacts there at that time, but those warnings are in place at this time, which means, even though the center of that circulation could be passing towards the west of Key West, places like, the Dry Tortugas are going to be looking at potentially for some stronger winds as this kicks on by out here, Lee.
Absolutely. And so from there, it's going to move into the Gulf of Mexico. And there's a lot of uncertainty on what this system is going to do as it moves into the Gulf, if it's going to weaken and dissipate over the Gulf of Mexico, if it will make landfall somewhere, will it be a tropical storm when it does so? But we'll be watching our seas out there. This is a great graphic that Robert Spetta put together. And this is model data for winds over Havana in Cuba. So Robert, I don't want to steal your thunder here. How about you talk about this? Because you put this together.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a good model comparison because I like showing this because it shows you the different type of models. ECMWF really kind of leaning in on this maintained tropical storm strength winds and weakening out. But I think the GFS being a bit more aggressive is probably the better of the models here, mainly because of the fact that this could be getting up to a Cat 3 prior to landfall. So it's already progressing above what the models are kind of handling with that storm system right now. So that means that it could be looking at Cat 1 winds inside of Cuba. But now, if you've gone through any of the previous hurricanes in the state of Florida, for example, and you were just kind of sideswiped, or maybe you were in Orlando into Jacksonville, we didn't even really see true Cat 1 winds, but you do remember how windy it was. So Havana, and on top of that, let's not forget that Cuba, yeah, they're starting to get those powers back on and everything, but they're still dealing with infrastructure issues. So this could be a major issue for our friends towards the south here in Cuba, specifically the largest city on the island out here.
That's what I was going to bring up with you, too, just the fact that they're still dealing with those power issues. It's awful what they're about to go through, especially now with that major hurricane forecast. And there's good model agreement on this system moving right over Cuba. Obviously, it's right up there. And then we diverge when it comes to the models. However, I will say today, better than yesterday, better than the day before, models starting to agree on it turning sharply to the west once it's in the Gulf of Mexico. We've had the GFS recently, the past couple of days, trying to bring a landfall maybe near or even east of New Orleans, and now it has started to agree more with the European, which has always been on that track to the west, somewhere out there in the Gulf. What is it, Texas? Is it Mexico? You can see the Canadians still trying to head for Louisiana, but a lot of these systems at least bringing it out into the Gulf of Mexico.
And let's remember the Canadian model, the CMC, you see it there on the top over, that's meant for snow.
Right.
That is the Canadian, and it does a really good job for Canada. Canadian model, it's always interesting to look at, but just remember that for the tropics, it's not a prime model. Nothing against the model. It's a great one. It's just each one of these models, each one of these guys have their strengths and weaknesses. CMC is not a strength for hurricanes. So yeah, I mean, more and more. What I see here when I look at these spaghetti plots, though, is a car crash.
Right, yeah, it gets crazy. And that's why when you see the cone, it's a huge blob at the end. Because remember, the cone is where the center of the storm could be. be. So that's just the center, not those impacts, not talking about how big that storm may be. Robert, a lot of these models have also hinted at it just falling apart in the Gulf of Mexico.
And I think that's a likelihood. Dry air, shear, because this car crash is due to a cold front coming through, and that's going to increase shear, dry air. There's relatively cooler sea surface temperatures there. They're still warm, but these are all factors that tropical systems don't like. So is there a chance that this is going to be making landfall as a major hurricane on the Gulf Coast? I think highly, highly unlikely and improbable based on what we're seeing now.
Yeah, just those environmental factors. Finally, this is the last month of hurricane season, and for a reason, the environment becomes a bit more favorable for us, for those storms to fall apart and not be as long-lived or strong at landfall. Not impossible, but still, it looks like it's going to weaken. And then besides that, fairly quiet out there, all things considered, with the season that we've had, but there is this other area which has a low chance of formation. I've gotten some questions on this too. People have heard about something coming behind Rafael, and I just want everyone to know still a low chance of possible development in the next 7 days.
Come on, Lee, you got to give us a break here.
and
I feel everybody's just like, when is it gonna stop?
I know.
And this is, but it goes back to what we said at the beginning of the hurricane season, that there was going to be some of these storms that there would be these times of kind of one storm after another, I guess I should say, because the energy is still out there, but at least it is a low chance at this time. And this is going to have to fight the same things that we were just saying Rafael's going to be fighting. Increasing shear with a front coming down. Of course, we're going to watch it, but at least it is undergoing a bit of shear. And we can even see that in the satellite picture right now. I see kind of how it almost looks like it's getting blown off a little bit, like if you were blowing on a candle and the flame kind of gets leaned towards the side. We're kind of seeing that just
Great
north
analysis.
of that. I think that's a good way, because that is shear.
It is.
So where that yellow X is, you kind of see how the winds just north of that and the cloud cover is shifting towards the east. That is that shear that is blowing in on this. And if you look really closely, the low level clouds, the stratocumulus below it, are actually moving from east to west, while the upper level clouds are moving from west to east. These are all indicators of that increasing shear out here. So I don't think it's favorable for development whatsoever out into the Caribbean there.
Which is good. And same, as you mentioned, already talked about this, but out in the Gulf of Mexico too. So still we have in Cuba, favorable conditions, and that's why it's forecast to become a Cat 3. Again, just 1 mile per hour away from being a major Category 3 hurricane. But for us, what we're dealing with here on the First Coast, we'll have some rainfall. It could be heavy at times, some ponding on the road, and maybe 1 to 3 inches total, but the heaviest is going to be to the north of us. So our rain chances are higher today and tomorrow, and then we'll see those rain chances start to drop off. But when it comes to our rainfall totals, let me just zoom into the First Coast here, and you can see how all of that heavier rain, or the higher rainfall totals, mainly falling to the north. We have the front that we talked about that's bringing some heavy rain with it. So for the First Coast, it's dreary out there today. It's cloudy, it's rainy, but again, the heaviest rain to our north. Some parts of our area still under a low risk of localized flooding for the most part. That's all of you in green. This is from the Weather Prediction Center. It's saying you have a marginal risk of excessive rainfall. That's a level 1 out of 4, but still, if we get some heavier rain, that could lead to some ponding on the roadways, poor drainage areas, and also then across some parts of southeast Georgia, you're a level 2 out of 4 for that heavy rainfall. And Robert, we've already been seeing the rain so far this morning.
Yeah, so we've already been seeing that rain, some more additional rain, saturated grounds. It could be some localized flooding. We're not saying, Milton, Hurricane level flooding here,
no,
guys.
Absolutely not.
It's just, some more precipitation here. So it's going to be a bit soggy. Hey, how about this one? Average number of tropical systems by November 6. I like this graphic here, Lee. On that 30-year average, 13 named storms, 6 hurricanes, 3 major hurricanes. How are we doing for this year?
Okay, so well above average, unfortunately. 17 named storms so far, 11 of those hurricanes. Yes, we've had 4 major hurricanes so far, and don't forget, we might get our 5th one with Rafael. So a much more active than normal season. It has been a crazy season. We are in November. We are still talking about hurricanes. So again, we might add number 5 to the major hurricane list if it makes it, because it is forecast to become a major hurricane. So we are almost there, November 6th, and unfortunately still just an insanely active season. So here's a look at all of our storms so far. Oh, we need to update this graphic too, Robert.
Oh, Rafael's a 2, yeah.
Yeah, it is a 2. So it shows how quickly this hurricane has been changing. We're trying to get all of our graphics updated for you all. This one got overlooked, but yeah, right there there's a list of all of our storms we've had so far.
It just does still, especially if we hit 5 major hurricanes. And I'm not trying to, we're trying to keep level-headed here.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely could have hyped up this storm, and it is a big impactor for Western Cuba. We know most of you are watching from the United States here. But I do want to take a moment and just stress how we got 5 major hurricanes. It used to be 1 or 2 was a big year. We're 5, going all the way back to Beryl, which made a Cat 5. That was in June, right?
Yes.
This
earliest on record.
Becoming more of the norm. And you just got to remember that these warm sea surface temperatures out here, this does not fluctuate drastically year to year. It gradually is getting warmer and warmer. So we can expect more of these late season storms. People have been asking, it's November, when is this going to end? And the fact is, we're seeing those still warm sea surface temperatures out there. That is fuel that can allow for these storm systems to strengthen and later into hurricane season. And not only, by the way, Lee, here in the Atlantic, but I mean the Eastern Pacific, the Western Pacific, Southern Pacific, globally, sea surface temperatures are warmer and we're seeing stronger and stronger storms. So these are just some things to keep in mind as we look ahead. I know you don't want to hear that, but it is the start of the season forecast is coming to pass here just a bit.
And that's what, my dad actually asked me, can you get storms outside of the hurricane season, which is a good question because it's probably on a lot of people's mind with how we're still having these storms in November. And yes, it's not unheard of. It's definitely rare, but it has happened. I've remember in my career so far, I can remember a system in December, a named storm in January, and then we had that unnamed tropical storm in January just a couple of years ago.
And they've been quite common in May. This year was weird because we didn't get any in May. And also, and of course, we're talking about the Atlantic, but I do want to mention, I've covered multiple storms on New Year's Day in the Western Pacific, multiple hurricane equivalent type of storms. So they are definitely possible out of there. It just needs those ingredients need to be put in place. And we're seeing the season extend, just like snow has been getting shorter and shorter each year. I mean, for example, and I just want to, I talked about typhoon here for a second. Mount Fuji got snowfall. This because I like this because history for Mount Fuji goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. People always say, how do you know about the tropical systems years back? Well, let's just talk about Fujisan because they just got snow. It was the latest on record for the peak of Mount Fuji since records began, going back 1,000 years here. Absolutely incredible. And it just shows the warm weather and winters are getting a bit shorter. All right. So when was the last time a tropical storm or hurricane was impacted on Election Day here? And the answer is Juan back in 1985. Now, Juan made landfall actually on October 31st, but it moved towards north and impacted the West Virginia, Roanoke, specifically off towards the Carolinas into Virginia. There was some severe flooding because of, kind of this getting squeezed up with a passing front. So there was some impacts on Election Day in 1985. So if you're curious, has this ever happened before on Election Day? Sort of. And we've never had a full-blown hurricane over polling sites, but there was some severe flooding due to that moisture getting pulled towards the north with Juan back in 1985, Lee. Yeah,
so our friends in Key West not alone under those tropical alerts when it comes to an election day and dealing with impending storm potential impacts. So before we go, I just wanted to give another look at this hurricane now expected to become a major hurricane. We are almost there, unfortunately. 110 mile per hour sustained winds. It is November, and we are talking about the possibility of a major hurricane, Robert. So there's the hurricane hunters flying through the system. They're going to continue to keep observing this hurricane. Again, for us, we just have some showers today. We're not expecting direct impacts from this hurricane here on the first coast, but again, expect it to be a major hurricane and then move out into the Gulf of Mexico.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Lee, and for us talking through this, and I hope we've helped some of you out. If you have questions, though, please comment, send us a message. And one more thing, make sure you watch us on First Coast News Plus, because we have I know this storm's not impacting Florida directly, but when it is, we're going to have continuous coverage for you. So you're watching right now live. I truly appreciate it. Make sure you have that First Coast News Plus app wherever you're going to watch it from, so you can get the latest and greatest information.
Thanks for joining us.
All right, bye.